I'd like to be the kind of president that's more concerned about the people on Main Street, not just the folks on Wall Street, and we need that kind of Republican running, that kind of Republican winning. I'd never forget who the boss really, really is.
Mike Huckabee has been on a roll since last month's presidential debate in Iowa, coming in second to Mitt Romney at the straw poll and earning covers like this from the National Review. Huck, the former Arkansas governor's record and winning ways. This morning, the governor joins us from Little Rock, Arkansas. Good morning, Governor Huckabee.
Well, good morning, George.
Well, you have been on a roll this month, but you're about to face some new competition this week. Former Senator Fred Thompson is going to get in the race, and he and his people are all saying that his pitch is going to be that he's the only consistent mainstream conservative in the race. Is he right?
Of course not. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons that maybe he's delayed. He's looked at the fact that if he's looking for a consistent conservative, that would be Mike Huckabee. I've been a governor 10.5 years and governed conservatively, but also governed with results. And what people in this country are looking for is not just a conservative or even a liberal. What they're looking for is someone who's effective, who can get the job done. When I listened to the senators just a moment ago, George, I heard the same thing. It's Republicans versus Democrats. American people are so sick of that. What they want is, will you fix the borders? Will you somehow bring a peaceful and victorious solution to Iraq? Will you change our tax code? Will you make education work? They don't care who gets it done. They just want results.
Let me ask you another question about Senator Thompson. You talked about your record in Arkansas. Already people are starting to look at his record, particularly his record as a lobbyist. And it was reported that he did some work for an abortion rights group back in the 1990s as a lobbyist. He argued that it's a non-issue. Listen.
You need to separate a lawyer advocating a position from the position itself. And they'll probably come at me in 35 years of law practice with some people. I represented criminal defendants. I was a prosecutor. I've had a general law practice. So that in and of itself doesn't mean anything anyway.
What do you make of that? Is the fact that Senator Thompson lobbied for an abortion rights group relevant in this race?
Well, I'm sure it will be at some point. I mean, I'll put it this way. I'd rather run on my record than I had on his record. My record is somebody who hasn't had a Washington zip code. I've not been a Washington lobbyist. I've not been a United States senator. But I have been a governor. I have actually run a government. And I think that's the kind of experience that in the long term is going to make the most difference when people are deciding who do they want as president, making decisions, and whose background really comes from right out of the earth in which most people have to live and work.
You know, you talk about getting Democrats and Republicans to work together on big issues. One issue where your rhetoric at least sounds like a Democrat is the issue of health care. I want to play just a little bit of what you said at our debate last month.
I got a solution. Either give every American the same kind of health care that Congress has, or make Congress have the same kind of health care that every American has.
That's a great line. How do you do it?
Well, one thing you do is give ownership to each individual consumer. Right now, the debate is over who's going to own the coverage. Well, the individual ought to own the coverage. The reality is, with a $2 trillion a year health care budget, we're spending more on health care, nearly 17% of our gross domestic product versus 3.8% of GDP on the entire military budget. So it's clearly the economic driver. But it isn't going to be affordable until we start moving from an intervention-based health care system to a prevention-based, giving each consumer some ownership. George, we can get to universal care, but the bigger issue is not universal care, it's not health care, it's health. That's where we have to take this, and that's what I've been talking about.
And Governor, the proposal I've seen that does this was by Senator Ron Wyden and several Republicans also in the Senate, but it has a mandate, an individual mandate for coverage. It creates new state agencies to regulate the insurance. It requires employer contributions. One of your opponents, Mayor Giuliani, has called proposals like this socialized medicine.
Well, you know, I don't think it has to be that we want our doctors working for the government. We want our doctors working for us. Neither do we want them working for the insurance companies, and we don't want them working for our employers. That's the problem with the entire healthcare system. Doctors work for somebody other than the patient. If that fundamentally changes and we start moving toward incentives that give people really not only access and affordability, but gives them the help at the prevention side rather than waiting until they're catastrophically ill, we can put this system right side up. It'll make a big difference. And then we can get to the kind of universal care where it's not only affordable and accessible, but it is universal.
You know, earlier in the week when this Larry Craig scandal broke, you said voters won't forgive hypocrisy. with politicians. You know, this is just the latest in a series of ethical scandals that Republicans and a couple of Democrats also have been caught up in the last couple of years. How big a problem is it for your party right now? How did it happen, and how do you fix it?
Well, I think Senator Ensign pointed out that one of the things that you can admire the Republicans for, they took quick, decisive, and frankly, very effective positions on this. And Senator Craig resigned yesterday, and I think that probably is going to put an end to that. If he had stayed, I think it would have been a very, very challenging environment, and you might say we would be waiting until the other shoe dropped, which would not be a good situation for the Senate, for Senator Craig, or for anybody else for that matter. And I think Senator Craig did us all a big favor by leaving the stage and taking this issue away from further discussion.
Wait for the other shoe to drop. Quite a pun, Governor Huckabee. Let me get on to the subject of the general election. You told me back in February that Republicans underestimate Senator Clinton at their peril, and sure enough, she is leading all the Republican candidates right now. But the problem you seem to have is that a lot of Republicans don't believe you can beat her. Listen to Richard Land from the Southern Baptist Convention. He told Newsweek magazine, "We like Mike a lot, but nobody thinks he can beat Hillary, and a fear of another Clinton White House outweighs almost everything. Here's your chance. You know Senator Clinton better than anyone else in the race. How do you beat her?"
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is to say, you know, all these years I've been paying my tithes to the Southern Baptist churches I've belonged to. I'm thinking maybe I ought to get some of my money back if Richard's not going to be a little more supportive. Richard's wrong, and let me tell you why he's wrong. Richard's assuming that someone more like Hillary will beat her. Quite frankly, Americans are going to look at a contest where there's contrast. That's what I bring to the race, someone who can contrast in terms of philosophy and record, but also who's going to be able to challenge her on key fundamental issues like education and health care, where I've had not just some experience dealing with it, but some real results in having solved some of the issues that the rest of America is looking for. And that's why this race is going to be, I think, one to keep an eye on. Hillary is a strong, strong candidate, much stronger than a lot of Republicans want to accept. But the reality is that if we put someone up whose views on some of the issues that rally our base don't rally our base, then we're going to be in big trouble.
Okay, Governor Huckabee, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, George.